All right, class. Today we're going to prepare a writing assignment. The topic is privacy was once valued and protected. Diaries came with locks to keep the writer's privately recorded thoughts from being read by others. Public telephones were enclosed in booths so that conversations would not be overheard. But now, people feel free to post information about them on social networking websites and carry on cell phone conversations in public places. We would be much better off if we valued privacy, our own and that of others, far more highly than we do. Your assignment is to plan an essay, 400 to 500 words, in which you develop your point of view on this issue. Support your position with reasoning and examples taken from your reading, studies, experience, or observations.
Can I ask a question? Why are we even doing this? I don't understand what the purpose is.
That's a great question, Blue. We're doing this assignment because this is the kind of essay that you might encounter on the SATs or the TOEFLs. So if you encounter an essay like this, I want you to know how to structure this kind of an essay. And also, by the end of this lesson, I want you not only to be able to do that kind of structure, but I also want to introduce you to a method of argument called the Toulmin method, which might help to make your method of argumentation a little bit stronger. So let's start with the basics. You probably are already familiar with this. This is just the basic 5-paragraph essay, and there's two main parts to it. There's the claim, and there's the data or the support. So what is the claim here that the author is making?
I mean, I think the claim is that we don't value privacy as much as we used to, and it would be better that we went back to the old ways of how we used to view privacy.
Exactly. That's exactly. So we've got claim and we've got data or support. And the claim here is that privacy is like undervalued. And we so some of the support that we have for this is that they cite it here that people used to have locks on their diaries is one example. Public telephones used to be enclosed in booths, and people used to not want their conversations to be overheard. And now they're showing that there's this progression towards less value of privacy. So they're saying now people post their opinions on public websites. Now people have their cell phone conversations in public. And so I wanted to just try 2 examples of how you might do an essay about if you were going to argue either that you could choose either of these topics. Yes, you agree that privacy is undervalued, or no, you disagree.
So we don't have to pick this position, we could take the opposite position?
Yes, exactly. So you're in the SATs in America or in the TOEFLs, in many of these standardized tests, you'll be able to, they'll give you a prompt, and then they'll allow you to pick a position And the point is that you argue it convincingly. The point is not that you pick a particular position. So you just want to pick a position at random here. Let's say that privacy is always important and that we should have more privacy in the world. So let's say privacy is important. So what are some reasons why privacy might be important?
Well, privacy might be important because if you give out too much information, maybe somebody could either use it against you, or maybe there could be identity theft. You could be exploited in some way.
But yeah, it's exploitation. There's a great one. So here's your claim again. Your claim is that privacy is important, and then your data is that exploitation is something that might happen if you don't value your privacy highly enough. Another thing that might happen is what was one of the other things that you said?
I think maybe what about there's exploitation. There's also maybe there could be identity theft. Maybe maybe I didn't say it before, but I'm curious about whether maybe the information would be either embarrassing to someone else, depending on what's being shared, or maybe it's sort of bothersome to someone else. They don't want to know your opinion, but now because of the social media and everything else, it's sort of pushed on them. That's another thought. I know it's different than what I said before, but that's another thing I'm thinking of.
No, those are really good, and these are related. So I think of exploitation as identity theft as related, but they're definitely separate issues. Embarrassment is another one. So this is your own embarrassment, and then maybe someone else's feelings, others' feelings. And then this is an expectation of a lot of these programs, especially say the SATs, will be that they'll only usually expect about 3 pieces of data or support. So you could pick any 3 of these. If you have more experience or more data to support, or more if it's easier for you to argue any 3 of these, just pick those 3 and argue them. And then the most important thing after this is that you come back and you restate your claim. So then come back to the claim and say again that privacy is important. And so that's how you would structure that argument about privacy being important. How are we doing with time? We're doing okay with time. So let's try this exercise with saying that privacy should be less valued now. Because like I said, it's how you argue it, and it's not necessarily what the claim is that's so important.
So it doesn't necessarily, are you saying that it doesn't necessarily which side we pick, it matters more sort of the method we use to argue that, to show that we have 3 pieces of data or 3 pieces of support and then have a summary? That's more important than which side we actually pick in this case?
Yeah, exactly. And when I show you the second time, I'll go into more detail the second time on how we construct this argument. But it's how you construct the argument that they want to see. It's not what the argument is. arguments.
Okay.
So it's not like the substance of the argument, but the structure of the argument, really. So say privacy is not important. So what are some reasons why privacy is not important? Is that how I want to phrase that? Privacy is, this is the word, problematic. Privacy causes problems, let's say that. Privacy can cause problems.
So I think like one support element for that could be that maybe if things are too private, it's hard to really get to know someone. Like now on social media, on Facebook, we can get to know someone by the information they share, but if they don't share any information, if they're too private, it's hard to get to know someone.
Right. So, well, for instance, yeah, I have, I agree with that. I have a brother who lives far away and doesn't share very much on Facebook, and I have the same experience, so it can make it hard to get to know someone and what's going on in their family. He has a new wife and a new baby, and I don't know them. Hard to know someone. So what are some other things that might be problems that come from privacy, from too much privacy?
Too much privacy, if I think maybe if things are too private, then maybe you have to verify facts that people are saying. Like people are like there's information that's out there, and if it's too private, it's hard to like really get the source material for whatever that is because it's private.
Right. It's hard to verify facts. Like even in the university system, when you want to cite sources for research papers, like and this can be good and bad, and this can bring us back to when we were talking about this can be good and bad for like with the government and with the military. Like there's reasons why the military would want to keep their research secret, and then there's other reasons why other students would want access to information about science. And so you would have a tension between why people would want information and why people would want to keep information private.
So I also think another support reason for this could be if things are too private, if people think that their identities are private, then they are encouraged to, or they may be more encouraged to abuse others online, to like say things because they're not concerned that there will be attribution to what they say. And so maybe sort of like
bullying?
Online bullying is more easy because there's anonymity, and so privacy is a cause of that type of problem, or it can be, in my opinion.
Yes. So bullying and anonymity.
I mean, it's harder. Like I feel like that online people are more willing to share or more willing to say things that they wouldn't say in person because they have anonymity, which comes from privacy.
This is such an interesting problem because the stuff that they use to bully people often comes from the lack of privacy that the other person has, but then the person who does the bullying uses their own privacy to do the bullying. And then the other thing that I was thinking of was that if you have a lot of privacy and people are keeping all their feelings to themselves, then that people are feeling shame, and this goes along with bullying, that people are feeling shame about their problems, about the things that make them different. They think that they're different from everyone else. So this question of shame, again, you can pick, again, this is with the 5-paragraph essay, you only need to pick 3 of these. We've listed 4 of them. So you only need to pick 3, and whichever 3 make the most sense to you.
So I would pick I think the ones that are the top ones. I think it's hard to get to know someone, bullying and anonymity, and then the last one, people are feeling shame. I think the second one isn't as strong as the other 3, in my opinion.
But it's hard to verify facts.
Yeah, I think that's not as strong. So for me, if I was writing an essay on one of the entrance exams that you mentioned, and tell me, does this sound right? I would pick those three support elements, because I feel like those are the strongest. That's what I would go with, the 3 strongest, right?
Yeah, and why do you feel like those are the strongest?
Why do I feel like those are the strongest? I feel like number 2, hard to verify facts and research, is sort of self-evident, so it's hard to really write about, but it's hard to know someone. I can come up with sort of sub points on that, sub bullet points on that, and I can write about that. Bullying and anonymity, I could tell a little bit of a story about that. I could get into it. And then people feeling shame, I also feel like I could expand on that, but I think it's harder to do for the second topic.
Right.
Second element.
So sometimes, right, it just comes down to what topic you have more experience with, and that's a completely, especially a lot of times these tests, especially the SAT and the TOEFL, you'll have time pressure, and a lot of times you won't have time to look, you won't be able to look stuff up, so it'll come down to your own personal experience, and so it is better to go with the ones that you have personal experience with. So then yeah, just pick those 3 that you have the most experience with, and then come back to you'll want to come back to your thesis statement, your claim. So the claim is also called the thesis statement. Can you see this in the camera down there? Okay. And the thing about the thesis or the claim is you'll want to say this in a slightly different way than how you say it when you said it the first time. And you'll want to allude to each of the 3 of these, just hit each of these 3 points real briefly in a clause. As you, in your very last paragraph. So that's why it's 5 paragraphs. It's your claim paragraph, each of your 3 supporting paragraphs, and then your closing paragraph, which just restates the claim paragraph and then hits each of those 3. Okay. So now how are we doing with time? All right. So now I want to get into something that I learned in university about how arguments are structured, and this is about we talked about the 2 ideas about privacy, that privacy could be good or it could cause problems, and people can bring up data on either side, and people can keep disagreeing back and forth and not understand why they're disagreeing about that. And the thing is that a lot of times why they don't understand why they disagree, and the reasons why they disagree will often go unspoken. And so what the way to understand this that I was taught is called the Toulmin method. Oops. Method of argument. And all it is that like what it brings to the table is you've still got your claim, you've still got your data, and then the last thing it brings in is the warrant. And the warrant is the unspoken thing that supports the data. And so the way that this works is, let's say that a problem with, okay, let's see. Wait. Privacy. So if you say that privacy leads to shame, and then you say privacy privacy is bad. The warrant here is shame is bad. That the effects that shame have on people that are bad outweigh the effects that shame have on society that are beneficial. If you could just as easily have the idea that privacy leads to shame, and therefore privacy is good.
Ah.
Right, because, and here the idea would be that shame is good because shame organizes society, because shame keeps people from acting out. Does this make sense?
Makes sense to me, yeah.
Okay, this is...
I mean, I think it also, tell me whether I'm right or wrong, but I think it depends on the society. But I get what you're saying. This is something we don't consider until we dig into it. And this is what you're saying, I think, is that this will allow us to dig into deeper than we would normally, the surface issue, into what is the driving force behind the issues that we're actually talking about.
Right. And so actually this is like and I'm trying to like tie into the argument that we already had, but the argument that people usually give for this, and I'm not going to write it out on the board to save time. Thank you. So we've got the argument that people usually give is Thomas was born in Bermuda, therefore Thomas is a British citizen. And so the warrant for that argument is people who are born in Bermuda are automatically British citizens. So like it's like
an assumption.
It's an assumption. It's like nobody has to explain to you. I mean, actually, people had to explain to me that if you're born in Bermuda, you're automatically a British citizen. And so the warrant for the argument is the part that you don't have to explain to people because they already know. And so for a lot of arguments like this, where people will disagree, you have to dig into what's the part behind the claim, what's the part behind the data that's going unsaid. And so next week in our lecture, we're going to get more into how does the warrant work and how do you figure out what is the warrant behind the data that you have for each of your claims in your argument.
Awesome.